I look up and Ash is surrounded by people on all sides. There's a guy sitting on our blanket.
There was a guy sitting, he just came and sat next to me. I was like, I don't know if I have one of those faces. Do I look like really friendly or something? But there was so much other space. He could have chosen any other piece of driftwood. This is the Exploring the National Parks podcast with Dirt in My Shoes. My name is Ash, and I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes. I think that the parks are best seen from the trail, and I'm here to make national park trip planning easy.
And I'm John. I carry the kids on the trails, I tell stories, and notice all the things that Ash doesn't care about much, like rocks.
Join us as we show you around America's spectacular national parks.
We're sharing our favorite places, fun facts, adventures, and misadventures.
And we'll even throw in a little trip planning.
Let's start exploring. I just wanted to share with everybody that I have taken my children over the past couple of months on a Lord of the Rings journey, and it all comes to a conclusion tomorrow. I am so excited because tomorrow we will embark on our journey through The Return of the King Extended Edition.
Is there any other edition that we could watch?
Oh my gosh. Every time I watch a non-extended edition, I'm always like, wait a second, they took that out. How dare they do that?
Yeah, it's been fun. The kids are way into it. They read The Hobbit, then watched all the Hobbit movies, and now they're watching through all the Lord of the Rings movies. They're almost done. The end of an era.
Our oldest son is learning the piano, and he chose this Lord of the Rings song, and it's just been in our house for the past month and a half. I can't say there's been a happier time in our home.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of nerddom, today, we get to nerd out on something that is very, very special to me. When we decided that we wanted to talk about Olympus National Park, which is the park that we're going to be talking all about today, and we'll do fun facts here in a couple weeks. But honestly, I was trying to think through what I like in Olympus and all the things, and I forgot about Twilight.
Yeah.
It didn't even come to my brain until John started singing this song from the soundtrack. And then I was like, oh my gosh, it's my time to shine.
She walks into my office as I'm doing some work, and I made her stop. She walks into the office and she starts talking to me, and I say, shush. And I say, listen. And I had been listening to the Twilight soundtrack, which has a very funny story, by the way, for our family, because when we first bought our travel trailer, we headed up the coast, but we never really used the DVD player or the CD player inside the travel trailer. And so then when we got up to Forks, we actually...
Which, for those of you that don't have a clue what we're talking about, I should say, so Twilight, the Twilight books... The setting is Forks, Washington, which is a gateway town to Olympus National Park. It's right there.
Right.
And so you will go through Forks while you're exploring Olympus. And it just so happens to be where all the Twilight stuff descends upon you. That's why this is connected to Olympus National Park.
Oh my gosh. And so when we got up to Olympus National Park, we bought a few Twilight things, and one of them happened to be this box of Twilight memorabilia.
I was so excited. You have no idea. I will show you a picture on Instagram, but it's this Twilight box that it has all these little goodies in it. And I was so excited to find it, but it came with a watch and a charm bracelet and movie postcards. But the one that's gotten the most use is the soundtrack CD that came with it.
Right. While I was preparing some of the Olympic information, I was trying to find on YouTube. I was like, I need to find the soundtrack. And so usually you can find a playlist with all the songs. Well, I found a couple playlists, but I was like, no, this isn't right. This isn't right. Because those of us who grew up pre the year 2000 have kind of a muscle memory in our minds where we can still remember all of our friends' phone numbers on all of our parents. We can remember a zillion phone numbers, but if you ever went on a road trip with your family, you have your cassette tapes or your CDs, you can remember which songs go in which order from one song to the next in the album.
I can't tell you how many of Britney Spears songs I know because of that era of my life. Listening to the CD on the Walkman.
Yes, in order though.
In order,
yes.
Yeah. While we were driving to see family in California.
Yeah. I found a bunch of these playlists on YouTube, but I was like, no, this doesn't feel right. And it's because I had to keep searching, but I finally found it. All of the other albums and playlists were starting with the wrong song. I had to find Supermassive Black Hole, I think is the name of the song. And that was dun, dun, and it starts with a really hard guitar and it's awesome. But I found it.
But John, why do we have this soundtrack memorized?
Oh, it's because after you bought that box of trinkets and had the thing, we put that CD in our CD player in our travel trailer. And it has been there for 5 years.
And every time we're in the trailer, if I'm making dinner or something and I want a little bit of music, and usually we're in places where you can't get Wi-Fi or anything like that. And so I'll just press play on that soundtrack and we just have listened to it over and over and over for years and years.
Right.
And it's the Twilight soundtrack. So that's pretty funny. I don't think we set out to do that on purpose. It's just kind of how it happened.
No,
but
it's so funny because that same CD DVD player, you can connect your phone to it through Bluetooth. And so we do that, but we never put in a new CD. We don't have those really much anymore. And so that's just the only CD that we've ever had in that travel trailer.
It's like in our truck, we only have one CD in our truck too for backup when we lose the internet. And that's Chris Stapleton, which is a really good solid option. Yeah. So we have a habit of doing that and just leaving it in there. But anyway, so that's the connection to Olympic. And I'm going to nerd out a little bit here in a minute, but we will start talking about Olympic from Port Angeles.
Right.
Which is not the Twilight stuff. So let's jump in with not the Twilight stuff first.
That sounds great.
When you get to Olympic, so Olympic is actually a huge national park. The crazy thing about Olympic is that you can be in the snowy mountains in the morning and you can be on the beach in the afternoon. There's so much diversity. But the thing is it's this park is almost 1 million acres and it takes up most of the Olympic Peninsula up in Northwest Washington.
Right.
So you're right across the strait from Canada. You've got the Pacific Ocean on one side. It's just an absolutely beautiful area. But the thing about Olympic that a lot of people don't realize is that there's not really a road that goes through this park because it's a giant range of mountains.
Right.
And so when you're planning your trip, you have to really plan looking at the map and stuff because all of the roads that you take to get into Olympic dead end.
It's true. You in all of the fantasy books and a lot of the books that movies that I watch, a lot of times there's a mountain range that almost seems impassable. That is the Olympic mountain range because there are no roads that go through it. You have to go around.
You have to go
miles and miles.
It's so much driving. And so while we're exploring Olympic National Park today, we're going to be jumping in and back out and then back in and then back out because everything just kind of dead ends.
Right.
So that's something that's really unique about Olympic that a lot of people don't realize before they get there. It means that you're going through entrance stations over and over.
Mm-hmm.
The lines get really long because everything dead ends. And so the rangers will make you sit there and wait until other cars leave.
Yeah.
So that you can get in. I mean, wait times, I am not kidding you, 2 hours.
Oh.
2 hours to get in the Hoh Rainforest on a Saturday. We drove over there on purpose. I knew it was going to be bad.
Yeah.
But we drove there and I was just I just wanted to see what it was like. And we got there and we're holy smokes. And they have signs saying how long your wait is. And we just turned right back around and went out. No. Why would anybody wait in this? But it's because most people don't know that Olympic is very unique in that way. Let's start over by Port Angeles, though, which is the biggest city over in this area.
Right.
So this is where you're going to find the restaurants and the hotels and everything really just right there in Port Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we'll drop down. You drop into the Hurricane Ridge part of the park.
Yeah, that's the closest area to Port Angeles. That's why we spend time in Port Angeles. So
Pretty much the only reason.
So that we can spend time there. I will say there's one thing that I really enjoy on the way to Port Angeles.
Squim?
Squim. Oh my gosh. That word. It's this little town right before you get, I can't believe you knew that what I was going to say, but it's like my favorite thing. There's this scene from Elf where Will Ferrell, he's like walking into the office. He meets a guy's name, Francisco. Oh, that's fun to say. Francisco. And like whenever we drive through Squim, I am just Will Ferrell. I just like sit there talking to myself. Squim.
I know.
Squim. It's the funniest word. It's just the best.
See, I know how your brain works.
Yeah, you do.
But the reason I like Port Angeles is because of the Cocopelli Grill.
That is so good.
We do usually spend a night or two in Port Angeles because it makes it so easy to get to Hurricane Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you're going to want to plan your lodging based on what parts of Olympic you are wanting to see. But Port Angeles is a really good jumping off point for not only Hurricane Ridge, but also Lake Crescent and Solduck and stuff. We'll talk about that. But let's go into Hurricane Ridge.
Literally on your drive from Port Angeles, you go from basically sea level and you make your way up the mountains to incredible heights. It's amazing. You climb you're a mountain climber when you make your way up here.
Yeah, and the thing about Hurricane Ridge, so you'll get up there, and this is one of the most popular areas of the park. This is where people want to go when they come to Olympic. It's also the most seasonal part of the park. If you're wanting to get up into Hurricane Ridge and not bother with the road closures and the snow and everything, then you do need to go in the summer to get up in there. The wildflowers up there are gorgeous.
Yeah.
They've got several different trails going through the wildflower meadows that you can walk. You get views of Canada from up here. You can see Mount Olympus, which is the park's namesake mountain, and it's just gorgeous. There's deer everywhere, so that's really
Little
fun.
marmots frolicking through the grasses.
Yeah. My favorite trail that's in the meadow area, that's like the meadow area has the easier trails.
Right.
Is the High Ridge Trail and the Cirque Rim Trail. You can do kind of a loop. So I really like that one. And again, you're only talking like a mile, maybe a little over a mile to do both of those in a loop. So that's really nice. But if you're a bigger hiker and you want to do a little bit more, then you'll drive all the way to the end of the road and go hike the Hurricane Hill Trail. Which
is probably my favorite hike in the park.
Is that?
I love Hurricane Hill. It's so cool. And I remember the first time that I ever did it, it was like a mixture of weather because it was like a couple of storms were blowing through, but it kind of cleared up really good, like halfway through, and then it came back. It was awesome.
The clouds were just like swirling and covering things. And
this place is called Hurricane Hill, Hurricane Ridge. So it gets some pretty intense weather. But it was just amazing, and I've been back a few times, and it's always gorgeous. But that first time was just so unique because I had to battle the elements to get up to the top, and then it just kind of opened up into this idyllic, amazing place, and the animals were there.
It was right at sunset, too. Like it was golden hour.
Yeah.
So everything just had a really beautiful hue.
Right.
Anyway, I love the wildflowers along this trail. If you don't want to hike the whole trail, just start the trail. Like the first part is wheelchair accessible and paved. And the wildflowers along that stretch are almost always unreal.
Yeah.
So I love that. We hiked it not too long ago, and the mosquitoes were horrible.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't think they could survive because you're up in this just like hurricane force winds area. Like it's always windy up in there.
Right.
And I got hammered by mosquitoes.
We did not come prepared.
So bad. Yeah. So that's a little tip You would not expect the mosquitoes to like that area because it's so windy and you would think they just blow right on through. But no, they latch onto your skin for dear life and just suck you dry.
Yeah. You're like, what do they eat when they can't get hobbit? That was kind of what it was like, what it felt like all the way up there.
Or they think that you're their own brand of heroin.
What?
It's a line from Twilight. You're like my own brand of heroin.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Oh, wow. That was a great one.
The bloodsucker joke. Yeah, man.
I love it. The parking lot there is pretty small, though. Right.
Oh, you mean for Hurricane Hill?
Hurricane Hill.
Yeah, Hurricane Hill is a small parking lot. But there are a couple picnic areas you can park in and walk.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's pretty small for how many people want to hike that trail. And the visitor center parking lot is big, but it fills.
Right.
And it fills pretty early. So again, because it dead ends right in this area where everybody wants to be, they will meter the cars going in at the entrance station down at the bottom.
Right.
So keep that in mind because people wait a long time just for parking spaces to open up so they can get up in there. You don't have to do that. If you go early or late, it's easier to get parking.
Right.
So I talk about this a lot with the Olympic itinerary on Dirt in My Shoes. This is a park that is very complex. And again, like those wait times and crowds can make or break your vacation so much in Olympic. And I think a lot of people don't realize that.
Oh, yeah.
So for all of these places, if you want help, like how I would break it up, because what else is hard about Olympic is because you've got all these different sections and all these sections are busy in and of themselves, it's really hard. Like the answer isn't just get there early.
Right.
Because everywhere is busy. So what do you do later in the day? What do you do in the middle of the day? Like everything is busy. So the Olympic itinerary on Dirt in My Shoes helps a ton with that if you're actually planning on going to Olympic. So that's Hurricane Ridge. I mean, in a nutshell, it's just really pretty.
On the way down the mountain, it's easier to stop. There's a few viewpoints that are so cool. On a really clear day, you can see some of the giant Cascade volcano mountains across deeper into Washington. Like you can see Mount Rainier and Mount Adams and maybe Mount Baker. I'm not sure exactly which one's which, but you can see some of those from really far away. And it's so cool.
If it's clear. Which doesn't always happen in this area. So going back down the mountains, then we hit Port Angeles again, and then you'll head west on the 101. And the 101 takes you through some areas of Olympic, but also goes in and out of the park as you're kind of working your way towards Forks and the coast.
Right.
So you'll hit the Elwha River area, which is really cool. A lot of people don't stop in there because the road got flooded and destroyed. And then they took down the dam, which is really cool because they want the salmon to be able to go back to their homeland. So that area just doesn't see very much Visitation, but Madison Falls is in there. We like to hang out by the river. It's like this really pretty milky color. So it's just gorgeous in there. But then you'll hit Lake Crescent, which is, I think, a family favorite.
Oh,
always.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a visit to Olympic without Lake Crescent as part of it.
But with an asterisk, because we swim in Lake Crescent almost no matter the weather.
Right.
If we're there in the summer.
Yes, which shouldn't be a big deal in our culture that is now like
Wim Hofing all over the place.
That's what I was going to say. With people that like cold submersion is a big deal nowadays. And so it's like the colder the water, the better. You have all these TikToks and reels of people getting into ice water and lakes and stuff when it's freezing cold outside.
They should just go swim in Lake Crescent.
Yes, Lake Crescent isn't that cold, but it's chillier than your hotel pool. And
it's pretty cold. It's really deep. I think close to like it's somewhere like 600 to 800. I think it's around 600 feet deep.
It's top 10, I think, in the nation for deepest lakes.
And it's really blue. It's gorgeously blue.
Right.
But yeah, we love swimming in Lake Crescent. That is a family favorite spot for us because Lake Crescent, like the lodge, first of all, has like some serious Dirty Dancing vibes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
like
true.
It's just this cool lodge and people come here for the summer and it's just carefree. And I wish they had Dirty Dancing.
That would be so cool.
That would be so cool.
Oh, man.
But so we love the lodge.
We should try the move where you jump at me and I lift you up over my head.
I don't.
I get back surgery. I can do it now.
He has a titanium back.
That's right.
Considering that your back hurts when you sneeze, I think not. But I love the Lake Crescent Lodge area. It's just fun. There's a restaurant there. You can get drinks or ice cream, or you can get a full meal if you want. And you're right on the shores of the lake. Mm-hmm. And it's just really fun to bring, like if you have a paddleboard, or you can rent some canoes or kayaks right there. But really the star of the show for us at the Lake Crescent Lodge is
the dock that is only for jumping.
There's no other reason for this dock to be there.
It's too high off the water to be usable for any type of boat. And so the only purpose is for you and me to jump into the water and to have the greatest summer camp experience ever.
Honestly, there have been times when we've gotten to the Lake Crescent dock and nobody is doing anything on it. And John will go and just jump and screaming at the top of his lungs. He'll jump in and then everybody will start jumping with us. That's what makes it so fun. It's like somebody has to start it.
Right.
Which John is always that person.
I feel like if you're a fan of the show Friends, there's an episode where Phoebe goes running with Jennifer Aniston.
I love it.
And
she runs.
And her arms are just like crazy all over the place. And it's just like, that's me jumping off the dock. And everybody's like, who is this guy? But then my children feel peer pressured into it by me. And then other people do it too. Yeah.
Like last time we were there, we were just up there with like a whole bunch of college kids that saw John jump in. They're like, sweet. And so the whole dock is just full of all these college kids and us.
It was awesome.
And our kids, and we're all jumping in. But there's ladders around the dock so that after you jump in, it's really easy to just climb back up onto the dock. So,
and do it all over again.
Yeah, it's there for jumping. I can't see any other reason.
There's no other reason for it. And it's so cool. And yes, I did. I showed those college kids that having children does not mean the end of fun. It just means that you grab your little one and toss him in and start the fun. It's just so good.
It's John's idea of fun. The kids take a little warming up to it, but
yes, the first jump is the hardest.
Yeah, that's so much fun though. We love doing that, and we'll be out there. I mean, sometimes it doesn't get that warm. Mm-hmm. Outside, your temperatures might be 60 to 70, but if there's any sun shining, we're there.
Yes.
And we're jumping. The other thing that we like to do from the Lake Crescent area is hike to Merrymuir Falls.
Yep, that's a good one.
Olympic has some really good waterfalls.
They're so pretty. They just kind of come out of the mountain.
Yeah, and this one's fun because it stays mostly flat. It's not a very long trail either, like 2 miles, but it stays flat for most of it. And you're just you're walking through this old growth forest, and then you cross the creek over a couple of bridges, and then you get up there, and then you gain a lot of elevation as you're like trying to get to the viewpoint for Merrymuir at the very end.
Right.
But it's just, the waterfalls in Olympic they just remind me so much of what you would see in a fairy village.
Oh, yeah. They all have like a little pool at the bottom.
Yeah.
And
they're dainty. Cool. This one is dainty.
I like that word.
Yeah. I know.
They're dainty waterfalls.
Not Solduck, which we'll talk about in a minute, but a lot of them are it's just like a spring coming out of the mountain, and all the ferns have a little mist, and the sun shines down and makes everything glow. I just love the waterfalls in Olympic.
Yeah.
So Merrymuir Falls is a fun one to do while you're at Lake Crescent. And you can go to the other side of Lake Crescent. like the Spruce Railroad Trail is back there, and the Devil's Punch Bowl and the Log Cabin Resort and stuff. There's other places around Lake Crescent that you can go to enjoy the lake. By no means do you have to stay in the lodge area, but we've tried them all. The lodge area is my favorite. Like I said, Dirty Dancing vibes. Need I say more?
Patrick Swayze. Just imagine him jumping
and
off
his
the dock.
Hips, yeah. So going further west, just past Lake Crescent is where you'll find the turnoff to the Soul Duck area of the park.
Yeah.
And this area, last summer we stayed at the Soul Duck Resort. We've been back in there a few times.
Right.
Because Soul Duck Falls is back there, which is phenomenal.
Oh, we love Soul Duck Falls. It's incredible.
I think it's my favorite waterfall in Olympic, and it might even be my favorite hiking trail in Olympic, just because, like, easier hiking trail. Just because the waterfall is like it's so unique and it's powerful, but it's still magical.
Yeah, definitely.
You
the
get
waterfalls.
Like a rainbow.
Yeah, you definitely get the rainbows. It's really cool.
So we drive all the way back in there pretty much just to hike to Soul Duck Falls, though there are a couple of other things you can do. We have tried the hot springs.
Multiple times.
The first time I was like, I'm not digging this. And we did try again this past summer just to see if I was wrong or to see if we went on a bad day. But here's the thing. If I am sitting in a hot spring and I see a giant clump of hair coming towards me, like, I am out. I am done. And that has happened both times we've been to Soul Duck, where I will be sitting there and there's like a giant clump of hair. It's making me sick just thinking about it.
The Soul Duck Hot Springs area is hilarious for so many reasons. And on the list, like, if we were to rank all of our favorite hot springs, there's a commonality of the top ones. They're usually pretty natural and the water flows.
Yeah, you gotta have flow. The
flowing water is a big deal because that's the biggest problem with Soul Duck, the hot springs, is because there is zero flow. I don't even know where the water comes from.
No,
honestly.
I mean it does, but it's like a pool.
And you just kind of sit around in these hot tubs, and it's fine. It would be just fine if you were just sitting around in these hot tubs if you added a little bit of flow. But here's the thing that I think is hilarious. You've got all these people sitting around in these hot tubs that aren't really that deep, and so you're kind of just like lounging in a little bit of water. Bunch of kiddie pools. You have a bunch of little kiddie pools that adults are lounging in, and then just right beyond those hot pools is the restaurant separated by glass. And so you have this restaurant overlooking all of these hot pools, and it's just creepy to me. You have all these people inside enjoying their chicken cordon bleu sandwich and fries, looking at the view of Uncle Dave and, and
sitting in a kiddie pool,
scratching his beer belly as he's like enjoying the hot water.
But that's not the part of it that bugs me. It's the hair clumps.
It's the hair clumps.
I was doing okay. I was in there for like probably 45 minutes, and I was like, oh, this is like, it's not as bad as last time. I'm doing okay. And then like 5 minutes later, I looked down. There's this giant brown clump of hair. And and then people sitting across from me were like, they're like, is that hair? And I was just like, oh, no. I'm gone. I told John, I'm out of here. I will see you later.
Oh, my gosh.
I cannot.
It was pretty rough.
Needless to say, I do not recommend the Soul Duck Hot Springs. I can't, in good conscience, say that I like them.
That being said, I will say, maybe if you get there first thing in the morning.
Nope, we tried that.
All right. It is not our favorite hot spring. You may have a different experience, but that has been our experience.
But go drive in there and go hike to the falls at least.
Yes.
Because it's really cool. We also really like, a couple other stops in this area, the Ancient Groves Nature Trail, which basically nobody ever does, but it's beautiful.
Right.
And the Salmon Cascades, if you can time it right. If you don't, then there's like a plaque that will show you kind of how those salmon get up the river right there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an area where they jump.
Right.
So it's cool. But yeah, if you get there like in September, then you might actually see some salmon jumping, which is really cool too. So there's a couple other things you can do back in there, but definitely go for the waterfall. That's the highlight.
Oh, yeah.
Continuing west along the 101, we get to the town of Forks. That's our next destination. Forks is pretty small.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot going on here. You've got a couple hotels. You've got a few restaurants. You've got the store where Bella worked in the Twilight movies and books. That's fun. You've got a Twilight tour that you can take.
Which is fun.
Go stop at the visitor bureau and you can see like Dr. Colin's parking space at the clinic. And you can see the Colin house, which is actually a B&B. You can see Bella's house. I'm not sure how much these people actually like their houses and places being Twilightified, but there's a museum that you can go and see her wedding dress that's covered in blood.
Right.
That was there last time we were there. They have props from the movie, so that's fun and it's free. Oh, you can go into the Quileute Reservation where they have a sign that marks the treaty line between the werewolves and the vampires. So definitely get out and take a picture there.
Yes, definitely.
That's a very nerdy place to stop, and I love it. I love it. I love it. So we actually hit it right. During July, they have Quileute Days, which is the Native American reservation right there, that are also werewolves.
Yes.
Jacob Black. And they did Quileute Days while we were there. And so they had like traditional canoe races in the ocean, and they had a salmon fry where they open up the salmon in a really cool way and like cook it over the fire.
A butterfly fillet.
Yeah,
so cool.
But they're huge.
Yeah.
And then, and so we got to eat some of that, and they do like native things, games, stuff like that, like stuff you can watch. And so
that was so much fun.
I know. That was really a highlight last time we timed it right to get there for the Quileute Days.
Yes.
Oh, Twilight gift shop. Well, actually,
I'm just letting Ash go crazy here for a second.
It was funny because I love Twilight. I was like the perfect age for those books when they came out.
Yes.
I was like my high teens. Who doesn't want to read a vampire werewolf love story?
Exactly.
And I'm always Team Jacob Black, for the record. I love Jake.
I'm Team Edward.
I know. We've had many discussions about this. It's fun. It adds something fun to an otherwise just kind of small, and this town doesn't have much going on, to be honest.
Yeah.
But they have, so they have a gift shop native to Twilight, which has a bunch of stuff. That's where I get my cardboard cutouts to put in my room. But also, I was looking at other things to do in Forks. They have a Sasquatch the Legend museum and gift shop now that I have not ever stopped at.
Nice. Oh, we got to go there next time.
I'm thinking we need to do that because that sounds pretty awesome.
That does sound, I love Sasquatch.
Yeah.
I believe that Forks is the perfect place, not only for vampires to live, but squatches to live.
For sure.
Oh my gosh.
For sure. There are so many good places to hide. Everything is like covered in moss, and they're just huge trees, and there's definitely a Sasquatch out there.
Definitely.
Definitely. So
if I can just interject for one moment, because I think that Forks is just the funniest place. And walking around Forks as a fan of Twilight and as a man can sometimes feel a little bit challenging. But luckily I have a wife and children that know that I'm pretty much immune to embarrassment.
As our son reminded him last night.
Yes, it's true.
Dad, why are you immune to embarrassment?
Oh my gosh. It's because I'm so secure.
Yeah.
There's this one spot in Forks that I just think is totally hilarious because the people and the businesses in Forks know there's a lot of Twilight people that come. And so there's a whole industry around Twilight, but they also really want to celebrate some of the things that were there before Twilight happened.
Well, it's a big logging town.
It's a huge logging town.
That's a huge part of it. And it's really cool outdoorsy place.
Yeah,
There's so much stuff you can do.
Amazing fishing.
Yeah.
And you've got a forestry history, but then you throw in Twilight and it totally just throws off everything a little bit.
It skews the demographic a little bit.
Yes.
Who's visiting this place.
It's so funny, but there's this one spot that I just think is the most hilarious, especially as a dad of 2 boys, because there's a Chamber of Commerce building, and right outside the Chamber of Commerce building, they have 2 old orange trucks. And if you know the books, you know what those orange
They're
trucks are.
supposed to be red.
Red. Right. Right. But in the movie, they were orange, right?
No, they're supposed to be red.
Okay. But anyway,
it's like a red, they're like reddish orange.
Right. Exactly.
It counts.
Exactly. Burnt orange.
Yeah.
And so if I go to my Crayola box, anyways, but as a father of boys, you pull up to the Chamber of Commerce, and a lot of parenting, I feel like, is just like emphasizing certain things over other things, pointing your kids this way instead of that way. And what do I emphasize to teach my kids? Well, the Chamber of Commerce is so funny because we pull up in our truck, and us and our kids get out, and I point them directly to these orange trucks. But what is right next to these orange trucks and all of this Twilight memorabilia is the Forks Timber Museum.
Yeah.
And right next to, and so you've got these giant statues of burly men holding giant heavy equipment, doing awesome masculine things. And then as I get out, I feel almost like I need to avert my eyes.
I'm like, sorry, babe, we're going this direction to all the Twilight stuff.
It's so funny.
John's
and it's like,
please, can I go?
I'm trying to avert my eyes and like not feel the shame that I feel directing my kids to Bella's sci-fi love story trucks over here instead of like this museum of masculinity on the other side. And it's just so funny. But like as we left that spot, if you ever watch movies, when some person leaves another person in a car, the person always watching is always like, just tap your brakes to let me know you feel some regret. Those statues of burly men saw no brake lights from me because I was just so happy to leave that spot where I questioned a lot of my life choices.
Oh my gosh. He says as he loves Twilight.
I do. I really do.
So that's Forks. I just feel like it's harder to find a hotel room here because it's small. So a lot of people don't stay in Forks.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, if you're going to stay in Olympic for 3 to 4 days or more, you should not plan your lodging to be all in one place. Because if you plan your lodging to be in Port Angeles the whole time, you are driving 2.5 hours each way to get to the beaches.
Because there's no road in the mountains that takes you quicker.
You got to drive all the way around.
All the way around.
Yeah. So we always, even if you don't like Twilight, even if you don't care about all that stuff, we always still split our lodging between both Port Angeles and Forks.
Right.
Those areas, because it just makes more sense.
Oh, logistically, it's the best thing that you can do to keep yourself from driving hours and hours extra.
Yeah. So if you choose to embrace the Twilight-ifiedness of Forks, you will love it.
Yes.
But if you don't, just stay there anyway for a couple days because there's other stuff you can do.
Go to the Timber Museum.
Yeah. So from Forks, if you're heading in towards the Quileute Reservation and you're heading towards the beaches,
right,
you'll hit Rialto Beach, which is really the first one that you'll get to right from Forks.
Right.
And Rialto Beach, and this is part of Olympic National Park. I love Rialto Beach because there's a really cool hike you can do just along the beach. And this beach has some really cool sea stacks and stuff too. But if you hike up to Hole in the Wall, then you can go tide pooling.
Oh,
which
yeah.
We're entering a whole new phase of our trip to Olympic because we've already been to the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
We've been to the lakes and the waterfalls. And now we're starting to hit the beaches and the rainforest.
Oh, and as you look at the map of Olympic too, it's kind of, the park is segmented into a bunch of different sections. You'll go in and out as you drive, but it's just so cool because now You're at the ocean, the marine area, and it's just a totally different experience. And it's so unique. It's so fun. And our kids, probably the one thing that they remember the most from visiting Olympic is these sections here, where they get to really explore and find life in places they didn't expect when they go tide pooling. And it's so cool.
Yeah. So Hole in the Wall is a great tide pooling spot. You've got to plan a little bit more because it's like 3 miles round trip to get up there and back. And you've got to go at low tide or you can't even walk the beach. Then you're like pushed up into the driftwood, which is no fun for anybody.
Right.
But I love that beach. If I'm just like staying in Forks and I just want to run into an Olympic beach really quick, we'll go to Rialto.
This also introduces a whole nother layer of complexity to this national park that you have literally no control over, and that is the tides. Because introducing the tides into your trip, you could have low tide in the middle of the night. What your tide pooling day needs to be arranged properly, and that's hard to do.
When I was writing the Olympic itinerary, I was just like, this park is going to kill me. It's going to kill me because how do you write an hour by hour itinerary when you're trying to work around the tides?
Right.
And they change all the time.
Yep.
It totally depends on what day you're going to be there and stuff. I did figure it out. I think it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, once you get over to this part of the park and as you're going to the beaches and you're trying to plan a little bit more beach activities, you have to pay attention to the tides because, like I said, a lot of times if it's high tide, there's hardly any beach for you to even sit on.
Right, exactly.
Or walk on or anything. You've kind of got to plan around it a little bit. But Olympic has so many beaches.
Yeah.
And this is where the naming actually gets really funny because you've got Rialto Beach, which has a great normal name, okay? And then in the outside of the park, like if you're at the Quileute Reservation, you've got First Beach, Second Beach, and Third Beach.
Right.
They're actually part of the park, but you leave the park.
Right.
Anyway, so First Beach, Second Beach, and Third Beach, which if you've read Twilight, First Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
La Push.
Okay? Yeah, La Push, baby. So that's those ones. As you go further south from Forks and you're heading to the other beaches, you've got Ruby Beach, which is a good name.
Yep.
You'll remember that one.
It's a good one.
But then you've got Beach 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I feel like this is a perfect example of when agree to disagree goes wrong. When it just like doesn't, when you agree to disagree, but then you still have to make a decision and nobody does. And so nothing happens.
We'll just name them first, second, third, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay?
Just like there's Team Edward and Team Jacob, there's after whoever explored the place and figured out naming, everybody came together and then they realized they had a problem. But nobody could agree which was better, ordering them first, second, third, and so on, or naming them by number. Let's just agree to disagree. And
we can do both.
So now we get to be confused forever.
I know. It was like, should we go to First Beach? And John's like, which one is that the beach down by Claylock? Or is that, no, that's the La Push one. That's the one on the reservation. And it's just like, why couldn't these just have better names so we don't always have to figure it out?
Agree to disagree, Ash.
It's fine. I still get confused.
Yes.
So once you go south of Forks, then you start hitting the other beaches that are part of Olympic National Park. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right.
And Ruby Beach.
Yes.
The two that I think are the best. Ruby Beach, because it has really cool sea stacks. I love going there for sunset. You just get so many cool sunset photos with the sea stacks right there that are kind of in your face a little bit more. So for sunset, Ruby Beach, absolutely. For tide pooling, my favorite tide pooling beach in Olympic, my favorite, and I've tried them all. We have hiked to all beaches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My favorite is Beach 4.
Yes, it's so good.
It's so good. There are starfish everywhere. And the tide pools are easy to get to. Like, you don't have to walk very far, like at Rialto Beach. You just don't have to plan as much.
Yeah.
But we went this last time, and like the kids, we spent the whole time. In fact, we lost track of time, and the ocean came in upon us.
Yes, it did.
In some of my videos, I'm like squealing because I was taking a video and the ocean was like, I'm here.
It's a rogue wave. Oh no.
But it wasn't a rogue wave. It was the tide coming back in.
Just the ocean coming in.
But yeah, there's just so many cool little critters you can find in these. And we just spend a lot of time at Beach 4 seeing all the anemones and the starfish and the urchins.
Oh, and
crabs.
There's hundreds and hundreds of life forms that you can see in these tide pools. And the trick is, if you can be a little bit patient sometimes and actually look a little deeper, because the first things you'll notice are the anemones, and then you'll see the starfish because they're super colorful. But if you just pause for a minute, you'll see all these little hermit crabs, and then you'll see some other little things, and then things will just start moving, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, there's so much life in this one little spot. And you can look under things and in things, and it's just super interactive. It's really neat.
It is. Olympic is such a good playground for all people.
Yeah.
Because your senses are just on high alert the whole time. Like, there's just so many different things to take in, and so many different plants and animals and textures and colors and temperatures. And it's like a sensory overload almost.
Yeah.
In a really cool way. So we love the tide pools. Some of the best tide pools that I've been to in any national park are in Olympic, either at Rialto or Beach 4.
Yes.
Those are our choices.
Yeah. And I don't know, I think back to, there's so many different kinds of ecosystems and so many different types of life in this national park. I love the forests, actually, that you have to hike through in order to get to the beaches.
Yeah.
Because they're so interesting, because they're different from what you'll see more inland. And like Beach 1 is one of my favorite memories in terms of like just being amazed by the forest. As we hiked to the beach, was it Beach 1 or First Beach?
It's not First Beach.
It must have been
You
Beach.
don't have to hike to First Beach.
Yeah, Beach 1. Okay, see the confusion continues. So Beach 1, you see these trees just in from the beaches, and so many of them have like these odd shapes.
Oh, is that the burl one?
The burls.
Okay.
Yes. Some of the, if you remember in Harry Potter, the Elder Wand has like these burl knobs.
They look just like Elder Wands.
Yes. All of these, and some of them look crazy shaped and everything, and then they just look deformed, and the forest just looks haunted in some ways and just magical in others. It's so cool.
Yeah. And while you're down there, stop at any of the beaches that you want.
Yeah.
Because they're all a little bit different. And the ones that are not the more popular ones are very quiet. If you're looking for solitude, we basically saw nobody at Beach 1 or 2 or 3. So that's nice. The Claylock area does get busier. That's where you find the Tree of Life, where that tree is just like hanging onto the cliffs and you can see all the roots below it.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. We almost always stop in the lodge so that I can get my crab mac and cheese from the restaurant there. But yeah, just any time you spend on the beaches, just pay attention to that tide so you can go tide pooling and just enjoy just exploring. Really nice and peaceful.
Yeah.
In an otherwise very busy park.
Oh, some of these not as busy beaches are excellent opportunities to find solitude, which I think this last summer, it was so funny because Ash, in so many ways, was a people magnet. It was crazy.
So I'm turning into more of a hermit over these years. Like, I want to be alone, and people won't leave me alone.
It's being foisted upon Ash because it's just so funny. We had a few experiences as a family where it was like, is this really happening right now? Like, it was just so funny. But there was this amazing experience. It was at Ruby Beach this last summer, and it was sunset. We actually make a serious effort to get to these places early so that we can experience things in a way where we can feel the solitude and enjoy it without a whole bunch of people. But we knew sunset was going to be a little bit crazy. So we got there early and we set out our blanket on this driftwood. It wasn't even that big of a piece of driftwood. So it was just big enough for our blanket, basically.
I totally forgot about this. And now it's like bringing me back anxiety.
So we get there early, well before sunset. And me and the boys, we go and we play in the surf for a little while Ash is sitting there on this driftwood. She brings her Kindle and can kind of read and listen to the waves and everything. Well, as sunset approaches...
Let me preface this by saying the beach is huge. There are a lot of places you can go. It's not like I was like taking the best spot or anything, because I understand.
Tons of driftwood to sit on.
So much space.
We found a perfect spot. It was pretty aloof from a lot of other things. There was just enough room for our blanket and Ash on this log. I'm playing with the boys. Sunset is coming on, and so I let the boys play by themselves in the water, and then I go up, maybe snap a few pictures and enjoy the sunset with Ash. As I look up to see Ash, it was just the world's funniest thing, because despite all of our efforts, I look up and Ash is surrounded by people on all sides. There's a guy sitting on our blanket.
There was a guy sitting, he just came and sat next to me. I was like, I don't know if I have one of those faces. Do I look like really friendly or something? But there was so much other space. He could have chosen any other piece of driftwood.
This guy, he's sitting on the blanket. There's another guy on the other side of Ash, leaning up against the log. There's like multiple photographers right behind Ash. Basically, there is a throng of people within arm's distance of Ash, and she looks at me, makes eye contact, and she looks like a kid on Santa's lap for the very first time that doesn't know how to handle their emotions at this moment.
Get me out of here.
She's like trying to smile at me while like looking around and just like, what do I do?
But we purposely went like, I knew I would get less good pictures from my spot. And I was willing to give that up because I didn't want to be by everybody else. But it happens all the time when we go to like the lake or something, and you know how you kind of set out your own spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be sitting there reading and stuff, and like people will just come sit next to me. I don't know how to describe what happens.
She's a magnet for people.
I don't, and I'm just like trying to send out vibes like, get away from me. Why are you sitting so close to me? I actually really hate people. Like sending out all these vibes. No, I am pretty much always surrounded by people. When John leaves me alone, that's what happens.
She needs me to stick close by to say uncomfortable things. It's like I can clear out an elevator pretty quickly if I wanted
I think
to.
I just must look really nice.
You do.
Like, I don't care. It's fine. And I'd get over it. Like, it's fine. But I was just like, I purposely wanted to be alone. So.
It was so funny.
Anyway. I forgot about that. But I love Ruby Beach at sunset. That's probably my favorite beach.
Oh, yeah. The sea stacks with the sun and the reflection off the water and the sky is just so good.
Yeah. The other thing that is really cool about this side of the park, so after you're done with the beaches, is the rainforests.
Yeah.
Which, I mean...
The Ho rainforest.
The Ho. There's a couple different rainforests. They're temperate rainforests. The Ho rainforest is the main one that's right here that everybody wants to go see. And it gets like 12 feet of rain a year.
It's incredible.
But I think what I love about it is that it's an old growth forest.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have these trees like the cedar trees and the Douglas firs and like just these really beautiful, the maple trees.
Yeah.
These really big, beautiful trees. Some of them are almost 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
Like they're huge, just beautiful trees. And then they're just draped in a carpet of moss.
Yeah. It's so cool. It's amazing. We've talked a little bit about how like some of the waterfalls are kind of dainty, and that's where you would expect to see like fairies and stuff like that. This is where you think that you would find like a magical, fantastical community, is right here in the Hoh rainforest, especially the Hall of Mosses.
Yeah, the Hall of Mosses is like the premier trail that everybody wants to do here. It's less than a mile. It's a loop, but you're walking through just these moss-covered trees. And it's almost like sometimes some parts of it feels like you're in like a tunnel. And then you've got the big tooth maple that's just massive and covered in moss. That one's my favorite. It's like a little side trail that you can take, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me how much rain falls here. And it's just, again, it's like a completely different landscape than you've otherwise seen during your trip to Olympic.
Oh, yeah. Like, we've taken you through so many different things where your experience is totally different. And this one, I mean, and even depending on the time of day, when you get to the Hoh rainforest, your experience will be different. Like, if you go during the middle of the day, it's really cool and it's really magical. But I love it when we're there, like at sunset, because it adds a major creepy vibe to it. And it is so cool because it's like, this is the type of situation when you would expect like a seriously creepy old woman to walk out and offer you an apple, like Snow White.
For sure. Yeah.
It's so cool. And if you see a few ravens flying around, man, yeah, that's awesome.
I love the Hoh rainforest. This is one of the busiest spots in the entire park, though. So the timing matters. The other thing that's really cool that I think I never expect when we go back into the Hoh is the elk that live here.
The Roosevelt elk.
Yeah, it's a massive species of elk.
I think they're the
largest in North America, right? And there's just herds of, like, there's a herd of elk back in this rainforest. So it feels a little out of place, if you ask me, but it's so cool.
They're awesome. They don't migrate like a lot of other species of elk do, like the Rocky Mountain elk. And so I think because there's so much vegetation here, they can just stick around and get huge. They just bulk up.
There is so much vegetation. It's a feast.
These are the elk that would have the meme like, do you even lift, bro? You know?
Yeah, so that's the Hoh rainforest. There's a couple other trails you can do back in there. Most people just go for the Hall of Mosses, but there's another nature trail right there that you can do that basically nobody does. The Hoh River Trail is a long trail, but you can just hike a part of it. But those are the main things. Again, the road dead ends right there. So you're just going in to see the Hoh and coming right back out.
Take that out of context.
You know what I saw on the Olympic website when I was reading about the rainforest? And they said they don't know where the word Hoh comes from.
Really?
Yeah. They think it's like part of the Native American language of the area, either the Quileute or the Quinault. I can't remember which one they said, but there's not really a word that's just Hoh.
Interesting.
So they're not sure. It says it's been lost to time. Like, that's just a really funny name whenever we talk about the Hoh.
Or it's like the greatest practical joke that someone played.
I know. Well, I was like, maybe somebody, you know, one of those trappers or explorers or something who are so famous for naming things.
Right, that's for sure.
Teton and stuff like that. Maybe they just named it. That's the Hoh rainforest there. Now, there is another rainforest that a lot of people don't see when they come to Olympic, and it is further out. And I don't usually recommend getting to this one unless you just have extra time.
Right.
Because you follow the 101 all the way down, you're headed down south, you pass the beaches and everything, and then you'll get to the Quinault rainforest area of the park. And it's a really cool area.
It is really cool. And I think one thing that you'll recognize as you explore, especially if you do both of these, you'll notice that it almost seems as though there's thicker carpets of moss on the leafy trees, the maple trees and stuff like that. When you get to the Quinault rainforest, there are a lot more leafy trees, it feels like, than there are pine trees. And so you see a lot of these draping carpets of moss on things like maples and stuff like that. It's really cool. It's a little bit different because the forest feels a little shorter because there's not as many ancient Douglas firs and other types of pine trees in this specific area. But there's also some cool Oregon Trail pine homesteader aged buildings that you can explore there too.
Yeah. So then you'll circle back around and you'll be on the South Shore Road. And that is the part that's not in the national park, but that will take you to the side of Lake Quinault where you'll find the lodge, which is the Lake Quinault Lodge. And that's like a really cool lodge if you love parkitecture.
Yeah.
It's just a gorgeous, it's that era.
It's so cool.
Where they were building just the big, huge log lodges that are just, it's fantastic.
Yes.
That's another option if you're really digging like the rainforest vibe and you want to add a little bit more. We really like going down to the Quinault. And on that note, Olympic has a lot of other smaller areas that you can go to that are just not as well known as these big main ones. We're not talking about those today. We're out of time. Most people don't even go to those because it takes plenty of time to get to the other main dead-end roads.
Right.
But I mean, you've got places like Deer Park or Staircase or Queets, Lake Ozette. There's other places you can go in Olympic if you have more time.
Right.
Again, just like a lot of little roads that just kind of dip into one spot in the park.
Right, because everything goes from the outside and points in towards this massive central wilderness, basically, and it's so cool.
That is Olympic National Park. We have a deep love for this national park, but I will say the first time I went, I was not as impressed as I have been going back over and over.
Right.
I love it more now than I ever did. Because we had just gone to Mount Rainier, and so we got to Hurricane Ridge, and I was like, meh. And, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
yeah,
I do.
These mountains are okay. But overall, like the first time we went, I feel like it was a little underwhelming for me. I don't know why.
It was also hard and confusing, and you spend way too much time in the car your first trip. Unless you use like one of our itineraries or something like that.
But now we go back and we're like, we know where we're going. We know what we want to do. We know what our favorite areas are.
Yeah.
And it's like an amazing trip. So even if you've been before, and I don't know if anyone else found it underwhelming, maybe that's just me, but I don't feel that way anymore at all. I love this park. So thank you for exploring Olympic with us. Your task this week is to go watch the first Twilight movie. Please.
And tell us whether you're Team Jacob or Team Edward.
In celebration of my nerdiness, go watch the first movie. It's terrible.
It's terrible, but awesome.
But you'll hopefully love it as much as I do.
Yes.
And it will get you excited to go to Forks.
And then after you watch it, then watch the bad lip reading version of Twilight. Because
dude, you slapped a fish.
Oh my gosh. I just love the bad lip reading version of Twilight.
It's so funny.
It's so good.
So anyway, but thanks for exploring Olympic with us today. If you need any help planning your trip to Olympic National Park, I've got tons of free resources, plus an itinerary on dirtandmyshoes.com. And please leave us a 5-star review for this podcast. We would love that. We are so grateful for you and hope that you have many big adventures in this park.